Hey, my name is Nolan Ramser, sponsored by Team Discraft, and you're listening to the Chain Clankers podcast.
You're listening to the Chain Clankers podcast with your hosts, Quentin Ferris and Horatio Gonzalez. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers.
What is going on, everybody? You're listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. I'm Horatio, and I'm here with my co-host, Q. Today, we're very excited to bring you, a local guy for us here out of Wichita, Kansas, who recently just got bumped up to Team Discraft. Very young player, very exciting to watch. And Q, what can the listeners expect from this episode today?
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun episode. Also, hopefully you guys enjoyed the little switcheroo at the beginning of this episode. Normally I'm breaking this in, but today Horatio's got it. So if you enjoyed that, let us know on Instagram at Chain Clankers. But yeah, we got a really fun episode today. Like Horatio said, we're bringing in a local guy. We're bringing in Nolan Ramser. You heard him in the intro. And this is honestly going to be a really fun episode. This guy just got upgraded to Team Discraft. It's really cool for him. And it's really cool for our area. There's not a whole lot of guys here that are sponsored by Discraft, so it's kind of pretty big around here. So best of luck to him. But we also kind of get into a discussion about his sponsorship, how he got started in disc golf. And I want you guys to keep in mind, this is somebody who's 16, 17 years old, who can throw 500 feet and is already sponsored by Discraft. Like, this guy is really good at such a young age. So we kind of discuss how he got into disc golf and how he has kind of progressed throughout his journey in disc golf. Something else that we really talk about this episode is how to get over those tournament nerves. We all have them. We all have different coping mechanisms. We spend a lot of time here figuring out how to get over these nerves because we think it's important to get over these nerves in order to have more success. And I think something that everyone's going to want to stay tuned till the end for is finding out how disc golf is really just poker. So you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned through the end to find out why disc golf is poker. But with all that said, let's go ahead and bring Nolan on. Nolan, what's going on, man? Super glad to have you on the podcast. How are we doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Glad to have you. Love talking to a local. Love talking to someone who's making a name for themselves in disc golf, especially at such a young age like yourself. So super excited to have you on today's episode, my man.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
For those listening at home, tell us how old you are and just where you're playing out of.
I am almost 17, and I live in Wichita.
Almost 17. That's wild. And you just got bumped up to Team Discraft, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I got on Discraft Underground team after a tournament I played in Oklahoma. Wes Shinovar, the captain of the Team Discraft Underground team, texted me and said, "Can I call you later?" And obviously I figured, it had to do something with that. And then after this season ended, I got an email from Bob Julio, who's the team captain of the Discraft team, and told me he was going to bump me up. So that was obviously super exciting.
Nice. That's awesome. What was kind of going through your head? I mean, obviously, you knew, or maybe you didn't, kind of had the feeling, I guess, that was going to happen.
I knew it was on the table.
Yeah.
I knew it was, yeah.
And so what kind of were your emotions when that happened? Because, obviously, going from unsponsored to, then Discraft Underground and then Team Discraft. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty fun and exciting jump to have, especially at such a young age. There's people who've been playing the game for as long as you've been alive who haven't even had the opportunity to be sponsored yet.
It was obvious. When I first got the email, I was kind of shocked because, he sent it so casually. It didn't say, like it wasn't. It was just, the most casual message I've ever been received on email. And so then I opened it because, I had to read what it said. And then when I actually read it, it was pretty exciting. Obviously, the end of the email just said, "If you have any questions, let me know." So I replied with, a million questions because it's not to have any.
I mean, I guess that's kind of weird. To them, they're kind of not necessarily just doing business, but, it's their day-to-day. It's their job to get people to sponsor and stuff. But to you, the players on the other side, that's what you're working for. That's your everything. So it's a little different perspective there. But let's rewind. Let's go all the way to the back. So 17 years young. Take us back to when you were, a wee old little kid or whenever this journey started to get you to this point right here. Take us all the way back and share those memories, share those details with us.
I started after a PE class when I was like in 5th grade, I think. We threw like ultimate frisbees at cones for the class, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And then my dad told me about these courses in town that have like actual baskets and stuff. And the first course we actually played was Oak because it was like the easiest to find on the internet. And at the time, we didn't have like UDisc or anything, and so we were like following a printed paper map.
Wow.
It's like at this time, nobody would ever do that. But you guys have played Oak, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We were standing after we played the first 5 holes on long tee pad on 6, staring at 16's basket.
Yeah.
That's the only one we could see.
Yeah.
And then some local dude walked up to us and was like, "You guys clearly have no idea what you're doing." And so he like walked us through. And so I've basically been playing disc golf for like every day weekend since that point. So like 7 years ago.
Nice. I know I've joined the Wichita Disc Golf group here pretty recently. I see your dad also posting in there. Was he like I guess a major driving force for getting you into disc golf? Had he been playing for a while before you got into it, or did you kind of both get into it together?
We started at the same time. He hadn't
Really?
played he hadn't played at all since he hadn't played at all because we got into it on the same day after I told him that we did that in class, and he was like, "Well, we could go try it, like actually try it if you really wanted to." And so we did.
That's awesome. So did you guys just kind of just go out and play casually, or I guess when was it that you became to get kind of serious, or was it just, trying to get better and figuring stuff out on your own?
I played my first tournament like 2.5 years in or something. And I remember it was like the juniors division. And I remember being like way up in the division, and I was just like, it didn't feel like it was that hard to get all the way to the top. Like I just felt like I didn't really think of it competitively. I just showed up and we just kind of played it.
Yeah.
And I happened to be, way up there on the list, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And so, we started playing more of those, and eventually I got out of the junior division and played like intermediate when I was like 12-ish. And so that felt a lot more competitive because, I wasn't playing against other kids that were thinking the same thing I was when I first started, which was just like, I'm out here to have fun. It was like legitimately competitive.
Nice. What, I guess, take me through that. I mean, a little bit, because there's folk who still aren't in the intermediate division, and maybe they've been playing for a while. To be able to, at 12 years old, to be able to be out here balling in the intermediate division, working yourself up to open, and being able to even be sponsored like that. What kind of grind did that take as kind of coming up, also having to go through school and having to go through just getting better at disc golf? Was it literally go to school from 8 to 3 and then slang from 3 to
Yeah,
9?
almost pretty much. I tried to get out as much as I could. There was a field by my old house that I used to just bike to and just like throw discs and figure everything out. And I probably went there every day. The guy that mowed the field out there decided to change his schedule for when I was at school so that he wouldn't run into me, which I thought was pretty cool. That guy was awesome.
Nice. I wish the people who would. So I go out to a field that's like 5 minutes away from my apartment. It's a middle school football field, right? And Horatio, I know I've kind of told you about this a little bit, but it's so close. It's the easiest field for me to go to, so I'll go over there. And I swear, once or twice a month, they just let all the middle schoolers out and they
Yeah.
just terrorize me while I'm
Mhm.
trying to just get some nice practice in. And so, like, also something that I'm not super comfortable with is when someone else is like running or walking on the track or whatever, because it's like, man, I know I'm not going to hit you,
Yeah.
but in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm definitely going to nail this person in the back of the head
Yeah.
while they're not paying attention. And so I can't actually get good practice in because it's in the back of my head. I'm scared to actually really just rip it. So there's this one gal who's literally there every single time I go. I swear I'll be there for 10 minutes and I'll see her walking up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this old gal getting those steps in again. So that's been kind of annoying. But yeah, literally the last week I went out there, I was just terrorized by 200 middle schoolers, and I was trying to do some putting. I was trying to, figure out some stuff with my race, and the next thing I know, I'm just swarmed. And it's like, you guys aren't even doing anything on the field. You're just standing
Yeah.
there. Guys,
Yeah.
get out of the way. But yeah, that was my fun little tidbit right there. Working in the field, doing those kinds of things, how important would you rate, actually spending that time in the field? We've talked about it on previous episodes that field work is important and it matters, but especially, figuring out your new discs. I'm not sure what you threw before you were sponsored by Discraft, but once you became sponsored by Discraft, I imagine they said, hey guy, you're only going to be able to throw our discs. Does that mean you spent
Yeah.
a lot more time in the field figuring those things out? Or was it, hey, I'm going to go play Oak or, some other parks here in Wichita and just kind of figure it out on the course?
Well, I had basically been throwing all discraft for like a year before I got on the underground team. So it's been a couple years now that I've been throwing all discraft. But when that first happened, I played the Des Moines Challenge, which is in Iowa, and they gave the players pack when I was in advanced was like 8 discs, like 8 discraft discs. So
Jeez.
I used to just get players pack discs and just like get rid of them or whatever, put them in a box. But I got like a full setup. I got like like stable, understable, mid-range putter, driver, fairway. And so I had like a whole bag, so I thought might as well just try it. I kind of got hooked, and I eventually my whole bag switched within like a month. And then like after that, I played the Doodah local tournament and actually won that tournament with a full discraft bag, which is my first tournament with a full discraft bag in advanced.
What?
So that was cool. I guess I never really went to the field like just to figure the discs out. I went to the field after I kind of already knew what they were doing. But, I figured everything out on the courses pretty much because, I had like the discs I had previously thrown compared to the new discs. And I, just based off like the flight numbers and the reviews online, I kind of knew what I could compare them to. So that kind of made it easier to just like, go play a whole round without the other version, and just see if you can survive without whatever it was. Just figure it out.
What was it that made you really, I guess you said you really liked Discraft, so you ended up switching over, which I mean now, looking back at it was a good move for you because now that's what you ended up throwing. You won tournament, you stuck with it, and now you're sponsored by them. Mm-hmm. So what was it about Discraft or the plastic that made you like it so much?
I guess I don't really know. The consistency is amazing. The zone when I first got it kind of got me hooked because I didn't really have like a disc I could upshot forehand. Like just not that was comfortable. Like the zone, like the depth of the zone is like perfect for a forehand upshot. Yeah. Previously it had to be like, for me, it had to be like a driver or something, which was hard to just get to stick. And so after I put that in the bag, I put the Nuke in the bag. And that was also like revolutionary to me for forehands because I could just get it to go so much further than other things. I think the plastic it feels really good.
What would you say is your favorite Discraft plastic?
The plastic?
Yeah, which one? Like ESP, Z-Line, Big Z, Jawbreaker?
I would probably say Z. And if not, I would say Pro D. I kind of wish there was more options in Pro D, if I'm being honest. I mean, I know it beats up quick, but when I first get it, it feels great. I don't know, something about it just feels so good.
So, take us back again. So you said you started playing when you were 5, and then
I started playing in 5th grade. I started playing when I was 9.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So 9. So first 10, 11, 12. So about 3 years in, and you started playing your first tournament, and then so now you're in middle school. So, were you going out to tournaments with your dad?
Yeah. So at that time, me and my dad were playing tournaments together.
Was he as hooked as you were?
Yeah, pretty much. We would always just like without even making a plan, wake up and just go on the weekends. Just just get out of the house and go play disc golf. And so every time a tournament popped up, like on the Facebook page, it would give you a
Yeah.
ad or whatever, and he would walk into my room and ask me if I want to play. First answer was like, yes, 100%. Then, you know,
No, I get
Yeah.
that. Definitely looking to play in more tournaments, and I think that's one of those things where low key, I've actually started talking to a couple more folk here in Manhattan, and I won't say there's a division amongst people, but there's definitely a debate to be had whether disc golf you should play tournaments or not, or you should just go and play for fun. I've recently met a couple people who are like, no, I will never play a tournament. A tournament is awful. I only will play for fun. Stop trying to ruin this game. So I mean, obviously you're on the other side wanting to play tournaments, taking it a little bit more seriously. What would you say to anyone who is maybe scared of or doesn't want to play a tournament, or, maybe just kind of wonders what a tournament feel is like?
I mean, I've obviously met people at like leagues and stuff that tell me, I'm never going to play a tournament, which I don't really understand, I guess. I don't know. It just doesn't really seem like they're out there to play disc golf. It seems like they're out there to just like, get outside and walk around. Like I don't think they're thinking about it like that. And for some people it's obviously like they don't want to spend the money because they don't think they're going to make anything back or whatever. So you could start off with something that's like more of like an organized league, something that's like $10. Um, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty much it.
Yeah, because I know league
Tournaments
nights
are
here, you'll get
tournaments aren't like bad or anything. Like they're not hard to adjust to. The only thing that's different is obviously like the tee times and the cards. Obviously, the people that want to go out can play with whoever they want. In a tournament, that's obviously different. But
Yeah, because I definitely know, kind of like the players kind of you're talking about, because we'll get here like huge groups, especially in the summertime, springtime, at league night. It'll just be packed, especially this last year. We'll go to Oak Park or wherever on Wednesday nights for like doubles or something. And
mhm,
there's just, I think this last year, I think they said one day there was like 85 people or something.
yeah, I kept
And
showing up to those and going. I haven't seen 2/3 of these people in my life. I have no idea who any of these people are,
yeah,
but
it
they
just
would show up
exploded.
every week.
And for some of the people who, do league nights every night, there was a mix kind of, this is awesome. There's more money for me to take home because they play that same park every day. So they're
Yeah,
really good at it, or they know they're going to cash and there's all this extra money in the pot. But then a lot of it was also their kind of that annoyance of just that extra is just packed, can't get through the park as quickly. But definitely those people just play the park just for fun, and they're competitive in their own way. They want to obviously score as best as they can,
yeah,
but the tournament kind of just they're not in it for that, and I understand that. But there's other players who want to play in tournaments to test themselves because it's a different type of game. You'll play for fun. I'm sure you've had your rounds where you do phenomenal, and then maybe you go and do a tournament and you're like, what
yeah,
just happened? Like, I
yeah,
just played this course yesterday. And I guess let's talk a little bit about that, because I mean, you're 17, you said almost 17.
yeah.
And so you play these tournaments. I mean, you were on some local big tournaments here and playing with guys, twice your age. There was even some guys that were 3 times your age, probably.
Mhm.
I don't remember his name, but he's one of the older
Are you
gentlemen.
talking about Ron?
Yeah,
Ron,
Ron,
yeah,
what
yes,
is
yes,
his last
yes.
name? Converse or
yeah, yeah. They
Connors?
call him Ron Con.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
Ron
had
Con.
so that tournament, it was you, and then it was, I guess, Logan and
And
Ron,
Ron on
and
the
that was kind
card.
of
Yeah.
on the final card. So, huge gaps in age there, different skill levels, all really competitive. So, do you still get nerves, playing these tournaments with guys who have maybe more experience than you, or like, what's it like going into these tournaments?
I obviously still get nerves. I mean, I feel like if I didn't get nerves, then I just wouldn't care anymore. I mean, like once you get into the flow, like when you're stepping on the first tee shot and you're thinking like hole one at Oak, like for me really isn't like the most difficult starting hole. And so the first thing I was thinking is Logan who had the lead, Logan's gonna birdie this, so I need to birdie this too. And so that adds nerves, but after you throw, you just walk down the fairway and talk to him. And Logan, after I threw that, actually walked up to me and said, "Are you nervous right now?" And I said, "Oh, what? Totally." And he was, I don't know, he was shocked. I guess maybe it's just because I was, I'm only 16, and he just thought maybe I wasn't like as serious at him or something. But once you get like flowing and stuff, the tournament kind of just settles down a little bit. Like the whole like usually when I'm on a card, I guess I haven't had any cards where like everybody just doesn't say anything to each other. I'm usually on a card where at least somebody talks. And you mentioned RonCon, and every time I play with RonCon, and I know Logan says the same thing. I'm always learning from RonCon. Like he just always like without even asking, he just walks up and says something where you're like, that makes a lot of sense. Like 'cause he knows what he's talking about. He's been doing this
Yeah.
for like longer than I've been alive, you know. And he's like, I still talk to him sometimes. Like we've communicated and stuff at other tournaments and Facebook Messenger, and he talks to me a lot about, you know, he'll see a score somewhere and he'll be like, well, can you tell me like what specifically happened? And then he'll give me advice and stuff. Like that's just a good thing about the community. People are just, I've never met anybody where they would just refuse to say anything or anything at all. Tournament nerves are like obviously they're hard to get over, but to me it's just always just play the round. Like it's not anything different. Like in my head.
So I guess a question I have then is, A, have you ever played on a card where, either someone's playing music or maybe they have headphones in? And B, well, I mean, if you've been listening to this show, you know my opinions on playing music out loud. But for those tournament nerves, I think something that I'm thinking about doing this year is playing with either one AirPod in or two AirPods in, but not like in a disrespectful way where like, hey, I'm not going to talk to anyone, but like, hey, like I'm going to be in my own little world, but like we can definitely still chat. Have you ever played with anyone like that? And like if you do have people like that on your card, what are your thoughts about that? Because I feel like maybe for myself and others out there, that could be some sort of factor that could help calm them down when they're playing in those tournaments.
I actually, in that coverage, played with headphones in for like 3 holes after I had just taken a bad score, just to like, calm down or whatever. But I'm usually playing music that like doesn't have words,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just kind of like a background noise, just so that it like isn't like completely distracting, but at the same time, it's not gonna like let me overthink anything. And actually, I mean, I don't have anything against anybody playing. Obviously, in a PDJ tournament, you can't play music out loud. But if you play with headphones, I mean, I don't have anything against that. I think you should be. I don't see a reason to make it not allowed or anything.
Yeah, I know Haley King. She'll play on the Pro Tour with headphones.
Uh-huh.
She's kind of. I feel like she's kind of gone away from that a little bit. She was doing it a lot more early on, and she's kind of, I think, trying to maybe stop doing that. I don't know, but I've seen her doing it less. But she definitely did it on the season this year. So a little bit about those nerves. I mean, it's one thing playing here locally, with Logan or RonCon guys, What about when you play these like tournaments outside, where outside the state, somewhere else where you don't know people? What kind of nerves are you dealing with, and how do you deal with that throughout the tournament? You said once you get in the zone, once you start playing, it kind of goes away, but it's still kind of there. What are some things you do to deal with it? What are some through the tournament, having a bad putt or something? What are some things you kind of keep your composure?
Something I've been doing lately, like without, well, I guess I say lately, but like the last tournaments I've been playing, without even thinking, is just this, like whatever song was stuck in my head that day, just like repeatedly singing it over and over, just because like it kind of gets me off the, if I start thinking, man, that was embarrassing or that really sucked, and I get mad at myself, and like I can tell when I'm mad at myself and I realize it, then try to get my mind off of that, because I don't want to look like that kind of guy when I drive to Oklahoma and I play a tournament and people are looking at me like, who is this kid? Why is he doing that? I just want to be like I just don't want to look like that. And I've played tournaments on a card full of people I've never met in my life, but I think somewhat of it is just they're impressed that I'm 16, I'm on the pro cards. And so after a few holes, they walk up to me and they say, how old are you? And I say 16, and some of them think I'm 18, right? They think like this kid's out here by himself. When in reality, like like me and my dad drove up here, and a couple friends are staying. And like when you go out of town, it's obviously a different scene. For one, because you don't know the course nearly as well as you're playing locally, and you don't know the people nearly as well as you know like the community in your area. Um, I played a tournament in McAllister, Oklahoma. It's like 4 hours away, and I met Gavin Osenkopf. He's from Norman, Oklahoma. And since then, he's been playing a bunch of tournaments that I have, like the bigger tournaments in Oklahoma, and I'll meet him, like I'll see him, and we'll just talk, and he's really cool. And people like that are obviously really helpful when you just play disc golf around of something you're not used to.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
still think the nerves go away no matter where you are. It just might take longer depending on the course and the tournament setting.
Yeah. So like, let's say early on in the tournament, um, let's say, I don't know, let's say we're playing at Oak, right? I think we all have a pretty good understanding of that. Let's say you're playing at Oak and I literally can't remember what that tournament was called that you were on the lead card for.
Keeper
Keeper
of
of the Chains. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And hole 3, I want to say, was the island hole.
Oh yeah.
And that you had to get it over the little wall or whatever, and that one branch that knocked every disc down. It felt like, let's say you miss the island, right? And you're a little bit flustered. This is a hole that honestly should be a birdie. If it's not a birdie. Yeah, so even better,
Yeah.
literally even better, folks. Here we go. Here's the question then. So how in that moment, obviously you're flustered, frustrated, that other people are getting that birdie, and that's at least
they were both
two-stroke
parked.
swing.
They were both 12 feet away.
Yes, perfect.
And then I come off and, shank it long, which I knew as soon as I let go of it. And they were both telling me, oh, that might be on the island. And I was like, no, there's no way. I threw that way too far.
Perfect. So in that situation, how do you then calm yourself down and be like, all right, guy, look, it's literally one hole. It's one hole. There's 15 others, 18 others, however many more you have to go. Like,
Yeah.
let's not let this one hole ruin the entire round.
Yeah. So when I was walking up like to the drop zone, I was thinking, I can see them under the basket. For one, I don't want to run this putt, air ball, and go OB again, and then look like an even bigger idiot. Like I don't want to make the number bigger than it has to be. It's already bigger than it should have been because I missed this, 250-foot hole. I was just walking up to that, telling myself that, there's the whole round left. You're comfortable with the rest of this course. I think the thing about that island hole was the fact that it's obviously usually not an island hole, and so I was just kind of thinking like, whatever, you can throw it harder than you feel like you should just to make sure you get over the wall. But then I went way further than that, and I went over the OB. But yeah, I mean, that was just one hole. Obviously, I could think of more mistakes. That was probably my biggest, like, genuine mistake that I made. It was just poor voice and line and all the other stuff.
So
But
in that situation,
off that hole, it was pretty much gone. I mean, I was frustrated till I got to the next tee pad, but I kept telling myself that if I keep thinking about that hole the whole round, then I'm going to just be dragging myself when I could just be, pushing myself more.
yeah. So in that situation, did you end up laying up, just playing safe and just kind of calling it?
No, I still ran the putt because in that position, there's like a couple of trees that are behind the basket, and I felt confident that if I missed, it wasn't going to have enough speed to like bounce off the tree and then go OB again. But it was a jump putt. It wasn't like a throw. So I knew that it was like easier to make, get to the ground faster. And because if I had like actually ran like throwing the disc instead of putting the disc, that would have been a different story because in that case, I could have gone way further than my putt would have.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's one thing I've kind of been thinking about recently, and I guess it's maybe just coincidence because I've been playing, poker with buddies here and then. And poker, I was thinking about the other day when I was playing disc golf at Oak, and it's similar in the way that, once if you start doing, I don't know if you play poker, but if you start getting desperate or if you start losing chips, you kind of start to get more ambitious and more like, I need to get it back. I need to get that back. Similar to like disc golf, if you make a bad drive and then you're in that situation where you want to run it, like, I need to get this hole back. I need to either par it or, cut my losses. And a lot of times people will get desperate. And instead of, just playing it safe or just laying up or whatever, they go for that situation sounds like it worked out for you. But I'm sure you've had others where it didn't, where you got desperate and you're like, I have to go for this, or I need to recover, instead of playing it safe and maybe just calling it a hole. And what's your feel on that? Do you feel yourself doing that sometimes, or do you get desperate in situations where you should be humble and just, call it?
So yeah, that was like one of the major things. Like before I decided to move up into the open field, is that I need to stop. Like in that situation where you go OB, I need to like make sure I don't go OB again. I just need to put it close and get off the hole and just go on to the next one. I don't need to make that three putt because it's one stroke. Like I can make that up on the other course, like the other 15 holes we still had left. Like there was no reason for me to like feel like I needed to make it. Like obviously I wanted to make it, but it wasn't like completely needed. And when I still played advanced, I caught myself doing that all the time. I was running 60 footers incredibly aggressive, having a 30-foot comeback putt, and I would just cage it, because you don't have any confidence in the comeback putt after you do something like that. And that was the one thing I kind of learned to putt. Like you did you guys watch that keeper video?
Yeah.
You can tell that I putt very hard.
Yeah.
Most situations where I'm feeling confident, I feel like I can putt really hard. And if I'm not feeling confident, I'm going to throw, something that like floats and stops in a more comfortable range. Yeah, it's hard to not, like, after you do something like that, it's hard to tell yourself that you can't do it again, because you obviously, like, sometimes you just don't even think and you step up and you try to make it, and then you go B and you're like, well, I didn't think that was going to happen. Like you need to think about the fact that you could be throwing strokes away when you really don't need to at all.
And I think, to elaborate on that real quick, I think that's really smart, especially for our listeners who, might not be playing in open. Let's say you're playing in rec, advanced, intermediate, whatever it is. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Nolan. You've been in all those divisions. I feel as though, especially at those lower divisions, it's not necessarily about how many strokes you can like gain, as in like getting birdies and things like that, and it's more about how many strokes are you not giving up to the course. Because literally, we played, I think it was the last tournament, at least that I played this in 2020, the one that I lost my truck in, rest in peace. But literally, the guy on my card would, every single time, if he was outside of like 20 feet, he'd just lay up. But every single time, this guy was ending up with a par, or maybe he was getting the occasional bogey because he wasn't really trying. But then we'd see other guys, including myself, who would try to run more of those putts and then just have to deal with a comebacker that you now, like you just said, you don't have confidence in, and you end up missing that one. So now here you are 3-4 putting when you could have just laid up and gotten it very easily. Is that something that you would maybe recommend to players in those lower divisions? And hey, don't necessarily worry about finishing under par and getting those birdies. Take what you can and don't give up extra strokes to the course.
Yeah, I think boring golf wins. That's because you don't need to do anything flashy, and you don't need to run every 40 footer that you have the chance at. Obviously, if you're in lower divisions and you have a 40 footer, I was never confident with that. Like that was something that, even though I wasn't confident in, for some stupid reason, I would still try to make it, which obviously led to worse comeback putts. Like I said, yeah, that's something that people should think about, I think, a little bit more. Like, you don't have to like purely lay it up. You can give it, you can at least give it the height, but you don't need to like run it with full speed. You can just make sure that it stays close enough to where you can still make the three putt, or the whatever it is that you're trying to save.
Yeah. And one thing I've started doing recently is, if I'm, I don't know, I'm bad at distances. I'm horrible, but maybe,
We got to get a rangefinder, Horatio. That's what we got to do. We got to get a dang rangefinder.
But if I'm maybe 60 to 70 feet out, which is a range for some people where they might toss it, might do like a full throw. I've started doing, and I want to practice more with it and get better at it, but I've started doing a lot more jump putting. And it's one of those where, it's not quite a full force throw like you're talking about, but you're not laying up. Because I know
Yeah.
my jump putt, it doesn't have that much power in it, but it's going to be just enough to give it a run, but it's going to kind of just die. And I've seen my scores come down because of that before because in that situation, I would do a full, a standstill back throw, and it would just go past it, and then I would end up being on the other side of it. As to where jump putting, because you don't have quite that much force and the timing's bad and until you figure it out. And it's a really hard toss, a really hard layup is kind of what it is, how I would explain it. So it dies and you end up being parked or pretty close. And sometimes you make it, and it's really fun.
Yeah, when I jump putt, I putt with a stable putter. I putt with the challengers. They have a lot of stability, so I feel like I can trust to like make it dive in. Whereas some people that putt with something like super flippy or dead straight, like a fierce or like a magnet or something, are going to go right at the basket. And when you go at the basket, it has the better chance if you miss, even on a jump putt, to like keep going. Whereas like it's not like a full hyzer putt, but it's like where my putter loses speed, it's going to drop down left. Whereas like something like the fierce isn't going to like dump; it's going to just keep going straighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
Something
like
I've
that. I think
always
that's a good
wanted.
way of explaining it. So then I guess one more quick question I have, I think, before I'm ready for the ace round at least. Speaking to that a little bit, would you maybe recommend going with a little bit more of an overstable putter for those kind of circle two-ish kind of jump type putts?
Well, totally. Um, that's something I've always done. I don't know where I really learned that per se. It was just something I was used to, where you can manipulate it a little more than a straight putter because I always felt like if I was jump putting, like with the putters I used to putt with, they would get flippy. In which case, they would turn and just like crash because my jump putt wasn't like as spinny as it is now. And so I think I just kind of corrected that by going more overstable so that I knew I wouldn't just slam it into the ground and instead it would at least fight out and fade. And so then I kind of just developed that where I could just get it, yeah, like I said, to just spike by the basket instead of flying past it. And that was actually something that Ron Kahn told me when I was like, a long time ago when I was still in intermediate, is he was seeing how aggressively I putt and the putters I putt with, if I missed, was going to be a long miss. And so he always told me, you can jump putt with a disc you approach with. You can just slam it over on a little bit of ante and it will just fight back. And it wasn't, at that time it wasn't a complete run. It was like a layup, but it was a lot more controlled than a throw. So that's something I usually recommend to people. I know some people when they get further out, they actually go with the flippier putter. And honestly, if that's what you're used to, then you can go with it. But I'm like, if you're having trouble with that 60 to 100 feet of distance, which is a really awkward distance. Like when you get to like
Yeah.
100 to like 70 feet, like not everybody can jump putt that far. And if you can't jump putt that far, then it's just hard to learn. And I think you can get a little more distance if you actually force an overstable putter on Anheuser on a putt, like not pure Anheuser, but just enough to get it to fly and then fight and dive back down. I think that's a good distance for that kind of shot.
Yeah, definitely. Just one here a little bit real quick before we get up into this ace round. I'm curious about, you're 17, you're younger, and you're not a huge guy, You're not like 6 feet tall, all yoked like Esro or whatever. But I've watched you some events you've done, and you'll bomb. You can throw 500 plus if you need to. So I know some players they'll get frustrated about distance and about power, and I just want to see if maybe you can clarify a little bit or maybe some tips about just it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are, or any of that. Like, tell us a little bit about how you have that power. Obviously, you've been playing for a long time. That's going to be the main factors. You've been playing for years, and people can't skip that. But just a little bit, maybe some stuff that has helped you increase your distance, or what you've done to increase your distance.
All of it is going to be timing. So, some people that take 80-foot long, like, yeah, just way extra run ups like James Conrad because they see him do it on YouTube, or they run up, 4 times faster than they do when they're just trying to throw controlled. I've always been kind of against that per se, because I just think it throws your entire timing off. Like, I think at that point, your plant foot is going to be way off, and in some cases that'll be uncomfortable, but at that point you can't stop yourself just naturally. You can't just stop. And that's something like Danny Lindahl says, slow is smooth, smooth is far. And when you're learning, that's what you should be doing. Like, I learned to throw putters pretty early, but I think that's one thing that's going to help you a lot is if you can throw a putter and it's not, like a straight neutral putter, and it's not just flipping, or it's not just crashing and fluttering and rolling or whatever. If you can do that comfortably and throw a putter hard, that is when I think that you are gaining distance. And another thing is obviously pulling straight through instead of rounding. And people will start rounding even if their regular form doesn't do so, by taking an extra step in their run up without even thinking about it. And then they'll get confused, and their whole timing's off, and their whole throw's gonna not gain as much distance as they should be.
Nice. I think those are some really helpful tips, honestly. Yeah, I definitely think that I can apply that to myself as well, but I think we are ready to get into the ace round. Horatio, would you agree with me on that?
Yeah,
cool.
Good.
Cool. Let's start this. If you guys have been listening to the show for a while now, the ace round is the same 5 questions that we like to ask everyone we have on, and just kind of see how the answers differ, and maybe learn some new perspectives. But we did mention this a couple episodes ago that we might be changing around the ace round questions a little bit, and today we are making our first change. So you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned to the end of this podcast to find out which question is being changed. Let's start here, Nolan. Let's start with the first one. So you're taking a buddy to go out and buy their first set of discs. What is one putter, one mid-range, and one driver you would tell them to get when they're just starting to play?
For mid-range, this would be like a no-brainer if you know anything about discraft. The Buzz. I think you could play a whole round, like your first ever round could just be with a Buzz. But if I had to pick a putter, it would be something, straighter or neutral with some glide, like a Magnet or a Roach. I'd probably say Roach just because it's like more of a generic feeling putter. And when you say driver, are you saying like what's like fairway or like
either or?
I would pick something lower speed, like a Stalker is a good choice, I think, or something like a Sting even, because that's something you can get to like I don't want to say anything with zero glide and too much stability, because depending on the arm speed you have, you're just going to get frustrated trying to throw the 7-speed disc because it's just going to fall out of the sky. But if you pick something like the Sting, which is a very understable 8-ish speed, you can actually, they'll be happy when they can get it to when they can see the disc in the air. So that's probably what I would pick.
Cool. I know there's a bunch of Buzzes. Anyone specifically you would recommend, or one that you prefer?
Plastic wise, probably Z, because if they decide to keep playing, it's going to hold up a lot better than the other plastics, but it's also not as expensive as the ESP plastic.
Yep. Cool. All right. Question number 2. Your favorite course that you have played and the number 1 course you would love to play?
The number 1 course I want to play is Toboggan in Michigan, nice. The one that Macbeth shot 18 down on.
Yeah.
I think that would just be like the elevation. Obviously, we don't have that at all. Yeah. And so throwing off that kind of elevation, it's important to get the nose angles correctly, and that's something I just think would be fun to experiment with. The favorite course I have played, can I use 2 answers?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. As far as like sentimental value, I'd probably go with Colwich in the Cowskin Creek. Have you guys played that?
No, I'm meaning to because everyone talks about it, especially here locally, and then so much about it, and I'm like, what's the big deal
Yeah.
about Colwich?
Yeah, wooded course. It's probably like our only wooded course, but there's 3 tee pads on every hole, and there's a bunch of pin locations, and they're constantly improving it. And I just, that's something I would go after school some days and just like play around by myself. And it's just a nice place to walk around. My favorite course as far as like just because I thought it was really cool. Probably Country Club in Emporia. I think that's something that like suits my style of game, which is like throw really hard and far and like but controllably. That's always something I felt like I had an advantage on. And I need to get out there again because I need to play. I need to practice with the OBs that they play in tournament because those are obviously a little tighter than just going out there and playing casually.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, let's all get together. Let's make a YouTube video and let's head out there, man. Let's make that happen. I'll definitely play it with you if you want to, my man. Our third question here is, what is the number one tip you would give to yourself if you could go back to when you first started to take disc golf seriously? What is the number one thing you would have told yourself?
Stop getting frustrated. That was something that I think me and a bunch of other people were realizing is I was kind of an idiot. Like I took it, as young as I was getting way too mad at everything I threw, like no matter what happened. I'd get mad at missing 80 footers, which doesn't even make sense because I shouldn't have been expecting to make those. I think that was something that was just like hard for me to understand, is that I was just always mad for like no reason.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a line of, you care so much about something, you want to be good at it, you love it, and you have that passion. And if you don't have that and it kind of dies, I think that's when some people stop playing or stop doing certain hobbies. They lose that passion. But there's definitely like a balance of passion and just being hard on yourself, I guess. So cool. I like that.
Real
one.
quick, if I can jump in, something that I think that might be valuable is, I can't remember what tournament it was, but they had Macbeth mic'd up and he missed a putt, and he absolutely had to have the putt to even challenge Calvin for the win, wherever Calvin
Yeah.
won.
Yeah, I remember.
It was later in the season, and he said he didn't say anything that was like mean towards himself. It was just like, hey man, you have to know what that
you
wind.
need to make that. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to make that. With the wind, you have to aim at a different spot. The wind's going to affect it at the basket. Just because I think he was saying, just because it's a tailwind here doesn't mean it's a tailwind over there, or something like that. It was never self-degrading. It was never, hey, you suck. Why did you miss
Yeah.
that? And I think that is a very important mindset to continue to have out on the course. Because let's be honest, none of us are Paul Macbeth. No, you're not going to make 100% of the shots that you go after. So getting mad at yourself and just being mean and negative to yourself, in my opinion, is probably only going to make your round worse. And then you're going to just keep
it
collapsing.
totally is.
Yeah.
It did all the time for me. And yeah, that's a fine line right there, because you like stuff like that Macbeth said, is you tell yourself that to push yourself. And if you tell yourself, wow, you suck, then you're thinking that the entire round. But if you're thinking, you need to make this putt the entire round, I mean, some people thrive under pressure, and I think I do, is when it's mostly on the putting green for me, because that's just something where I always struggled, mentally and stuff. But telling yourself you need to make this is different than telling yourself you missed the last one, now you have to make this, because at that point it's like a drag. But when you're telling yourself you need to make this, it boosts my confidence for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, number 4, your favorite memory playing disc golf.
I mean, that's a lot of them, because that was my entire childhood. That was all through middle school was disc golf. Probably my first ace. I was only like 11 at the time. It's going to sound like really boring, because that'd probably be a lot of people's answers. Oh, that was my first ace. But when I hit that, I was my dad still makes fun of me for this. I was like I was screaming so
Yeah.
loud, and people were looking at us like, "Well, is this kid okay?" And I was like, that was like the most excited I had ever been. Like, because that was before my dad got an ace, right? So that was the first time I had seen a tee pad, like from tee pad all the way into the basket. Like that was just something that like I hadn't seen before, and that was
Yeah.
crazy for me.
That would hurt, as you know, as a dad. That would be
Oh,
a proud moment, but it would hurt. It'd be
Yeah,
like, good job. Okay, you're walking home.
sorry, you can't ride with me. Yeah, that's funny. I completely agree with you. The first ace still the only ace I had, I was screaming like a damn idiot. But I was
yeah.
very excited nonetheless. So, here we go. Our last question we got for you, my man. What is the biggest mistake you see new players make?
Um, there's kind of two that are pretty big in my eyes. Is they pick a faster disc and they think it's going to go further, which I guess is kind of under the same thing. And then people that look at the flight numbers of a disc and then get mad when it doesn't fly like what it says, and not realizing that it's not going to fly like that unless you throw it that hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's a mistake in itself, and that's going to just make you not want to play because you're throwing this and you're mad and you're confused because your Nuke OS isn't going anywhere because you don't have any arm speed, but you thought it was going to go further because it was a 13 speed disc.
Yeah. And that's part of why we started this podcast and why we're still doing it. And hopefully people listen in is these kind of answers, this kind of stuff that maybe if you just started playing for fun by yourself or with a buddy and no one else, and you don't go out with other players ever who can help you, people like Ron Kahn, who can give you advice and stuff. And you're never going to quite learn. You're going to kind of just maybe either learn the hard way or never really learn good habits. That's mainly why we do this and why we have pros like you on who we can, learn from and avoid years of mistakes if possible and improve quicker and be better. Because, it's funner when you're better. So definitely. But, this is kind of, we're done. That's all the questions we had for you. This is kind of your spotlight here to, give any shout outs, thank yous to anybody you'd like to.
Obviously, thank you to Discraft, Bob Julio, and Paul Ulibarri and Wes Shinovar for, believing in me and stuff. Thanks to my dad for driving me literally everywhere when I wanted to play disc golf. And, he always makes Facebook posts and stuff. And every time, I wouldn't tell him this, and he'll probably hear it right now, but every time I see those, it makes me smile because it truly, he watches me every step of the way, and he's seen me play disc golf more than anybody ever has. And so he's experiencing, he always makes those posts, and at the bottom it says, "Disc golf is hard, keep working." And, that pushes me because, he's right. Disc golf is hard, it's frustrating. And when something goes bad, you just can't let it get to you. So those little things like that are what makes me want to play disc golf.
Nice. Awesome, Nolan. We really appreciate you coming on, man, and look forward to, hopefully maybe getting that YouTube video shot and or just seeing you out on the course, my man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.